And we're back. Hi, y'all. I'm Ariel Jade.
And I'm Renee.
And we are Shootin' the Shit. We're coming at you live out of Studio X Nash, a new space, for our third episode. We are on the historic Music Row inside RCA Victor Studios. And today, Renee and I have some hard shit, hot shit, and you got something new, don't you, Renee?
Yeah, I got some heartbreaking shit to share.
We also have a very special guest, a guy named Mike Loudermilk.
Extraordinary guitarist, producer.
Multi-instrumentalist, songwriter. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned for
incredible stories.
He has a handmade poster from Norman Blake from when he was a child. We're going to have to ask him about that.
We're going to ask him about a lot. Lots of stories to come.
So we have our handy dandy timer set because if you don't know us by now, we like to talk a lot.
And we're ADHD and have no concept of time.
So, tools of life. Real quick, I got some hot shit that I want to talk about. So I grew up in bluegrass and folk and Celtic grassroots, and we are starting to see a spike in popularity of bluegrass music, and it's due to people like Molly Tuttle and Sierra Farrell and this guy named Billy Strings. Mm-hmm. Billy just released, I think it's a 20-piece album. Let me look.
That's all I've heard about this last year.
Highway Prayers. Oh, he's so good.
That's all I've heard.
He sold out the Bridgestone Arena 2 nights in a row and the Ryman a third night in a row. Anyway, he wrote and recorded these songs up through like 2021, and it has taken him until now 2024 to actually release it. But it is a huge album and it's
Billy
awesome.
Strings.
And y'all should look him up. Okay, I have been silenced. That's it for hot shit. Okay, so that was my hot shit. Now, Renee, I think instead of hot shit and Taylor Swift, the queen, you've got something a little bit more serious for us today.
Yeah, I think our whole industry is a little heavy-hearted this week. We lost a legend. Try not to cry. But I grew up loving this man. And incredible legendary songwriter. So many stories in Nashville about Chris Christopherson, who just passed this week at the age of 88. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I loved him so much, but a lot of people know him as an actor from A Star Is Born with Barbra Streisand, but he came to Nashville in 1965 after he got out of the Army, helicopter pilot, and that's the year that RCA Victor here was born as well, including me.
Yeah.
1965 was an amazing year. It's first generation of Gen X, and things kind of shifted in 1965. We had Beatlemania, but Chris Christopherson changed the face of country music in Nashville. Such depth, but he wrote, "Take the ribbon from my hair.
Oh, it's such a good song.
Shake it loose and let it fall. Why me, Lord? What have I ever done to deserve even one?" But me and Bobby McGee. Oh, Bobby McGee.
I didn't realize he wrote that.
One of his biggest, but also he was sweeping floors at Columbia Recording Studios and met June Carter and handed her a tape and said, "Can you give this to Johnny?" And so cool. Then he flew a helicopter pilot that he was, into Johnny's yard and pitched him Sunday morning coming down. And yes, it was a Sunday morning when he came down on Johnny's property and Johnny cut that song. And the rest is history. Yeah. He went from sweeping floors and being a janitor and menial jobs to who he became legendary. But what a loss. What a loss.
But
that was about perfect timing.
That was very good job. And, that's something I love about what we're able to do with this show is kind of highlight some of these just absolutely iconic, impactful songwriters, hit makers.
Nashville stories.
Changed history here and, did so much. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Renee.
Yeah. I just loved him so much. Can't begin. had a major crush on Chris Christopherson, and a good friend of mine played steel guitar for the Highwaymen because Chris became a part of Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings,
cool, yeah.
and my friend Robbie Turner played steel with Waylon his whole career, and then when it became the Highwaymen, he was very close to Chris, and he's been sharing a lot of personal photos this week, and Robbie's one of my best friends.
We may have to have him on sometime because I bet there's some good stories there.
I've known him since I was a little kid.
That's what's so great about Nashville and the music industry when you really start digging deep, which is what we're going to do here on Shootin' the Shit Show on Music Grove. You never know what stories you're going to hear.
We don't sometimes know.
Shit, right?
We fly by the seat
We've
of our
heard some
pants,
crazy
and we're
shit
good at it.
So y'all know here on Shootin' the Shit Show, we don't just shoot the shit. We don't just talk about the hot shit and the cool shit. We also talk about the hard shit. So we have got a little mini me special guest today. My youngest sister has come and been helping us get set up and get this whole new studio going for you guys. And she's going to help us talk about the hard shit.
So, in the month of November, you're actually going to be looking at men's mental health awareness and children's mental health awareness. Some resources for both of those. If you are wanting to find the man's mental health awareness, you can go to groupsformen.com or mantherapy.org. Then this resource is actually targeted towards children, youth, young adults, and families in general. That's NAMI.org. And that will help with the overall generalized of your family.
Awesome.
Because men, women, families, children, we all have trauma. Nobody gets off scot-free. And if you don't deal with your stuff is going to deal with you.
So I know for me personally, growing up, there was a lot of trauma amongst peers and a lot of stuff. We don't have to go into it. We all have our trauma is the point, though. And I know that I've seen how not dealing with this can lead to even more destruction and of relationships, of sense of self, of overall health, physical, mental, everything. What about y'all? Have y'all ever, really seen someone that was going through it and they didn't go get help? And it made it worse?
Personally, I've had 2 friends that I've lost to suicide because they did not deal with it. And suicide is never the answer. You don't get rid of your pain. You just give it to other people. Yeah. And so many people care about you. And you will never know how many people care about you until it's too late. You need to put yourself first. And you have to love yourself first.
That's right.
Yeah. Look, this is real shit. This is hard shit. You're totally okay to say that.
Yeah.
I've lost people too. And one of my...
We just came through suicide prevention awareness.
Yes. And it's something that doesn't need to be limited to 1 month.
And the key is talking. And it's good to have an objective perspective from someone who's completely unbiased and educated to know the questions to ask to pull all that trauma out of you so that you can get it out of you and out there, away from you. And, a lot of people who don't deal with it, they wind up in addiction. And that can be life-threatening too, and it destroys families. I know in my own family, we have an addict that won't go through recovery, refuses to go through therapy and recovery. And so he's become a repeat offender for over 25 years back in the system. It reminds me a lot of Jelly Roll's story. Jelly Roll kicked it.
He got out, though.
He got out, and what a story he has.
Yeah.
And how many people he's helping.
But that's
now.
why you reach out and get help. That is exactly why you do that.
Love our mental health advocates. So thank you, Jelly Roll.
Yeah. Well, that was a pretty good time. That was some hard and heavy shit. Miss Elena Noel, thank you for hopping in and helping us share some resources and spread some awareness. And now, guys, we have a very special music hitmaker, musician, producer, songwriter, story haver, Mike Loudermilk. You think... Are we ready to get him, Renee?
You better buckle up and hang on, because this is a guitar playing, master.
Oh, so good.
Phenomenal.
And-
Tone, technique, touch. He's just finesse.
And comes from...
A legendary family.
He has talent in his blood, in his veins, in
And
his
so many
bones, in his
stories.
soul. I'm very excited for this one.
Yeah.
So let's go get him.
Let's get Mike.
And we're back with a very special guest now, because I know you got tons of stories, Mike, and I would love just sitting here and listening to you all day. So I'm going to set a timer for us so that we keep it kind of reasonable. And, you know, we'll probably just have to have you back a few times, because I know you got tons of good stuff.
I do,
to
and most
share.
of them are true.
Most
yeah.
of them. Most of them. All right, so I'm starting. We got 15 minutes. Renee, I'm going to let you start us off. And Mike Loudermilk, you are in the Shootin' the Shit hot seat.
Oh my goodness. There's a lot of shit to shoot around here.
Yeah, there is.
This is great. I love this. Of course, this is in the RCA building, and the vibes in this building are just incredible. I mean, it really brings the essence out, and anybody who's in the business of music in Nashville, you know.
It's such a historic and iconic building, and the music that has been made in here is just phenomenal.
And you guys will feel, though. I'm sure you do feel
the energy.
Yes,
You
it's
can.
amazing.
You can. From Elvis to Patsy Cline, Chet Atkins, produced so many people back in the day
yeah.
here. It was the...
If these walls could
era,
talk.
the
Yeah,
Nashville
these walls
sound,
could talk, yeah.
Took us from kind of hardcore traditional country to more orchestrated and...
It did. It had that the velvety string sound. Chet was kind of famous for that sound.
So I've grown up with great guitarists all my life, and when I heard you play, Mike, I was just like, touch, tone, technique. He's got it all. So much finesse, just so smooth, so perfect.
Extremely talented.
Grown up with players all my life, I'm very discriminating. It's so good.
Well, thank you, dear.
And your father's legendary songwriter.
Yes,
John
John D. Loudermilk, and he used to work in this building. Matter of fact, he's in some of these photographs on the wall when they were breaking ground for the RCA building. He's on the back of a construction truck. They all got together with Chet and George Hamilton IV and just tons of people that were doing this back, I guess, in '63. Whenever
Their
it
energy's
started.
still in these walls.
Yeah, and so that he was kind of on the cutting edge with all that stuff at the RCA, and so
And
glad
even
this is
before
still
you came
around.
in now, from what I understand, you have some Allman Brothers stories.
Oh,
Were they like hanging out with you?
you
when
well,
were a kid?
it was Dwayne and Greg. They had a band called the Almond Joys, and I was just a kid. I guess I was 5, maybe 4 or 5, and so I just knew them of staying at the house with us for, I don't know, seemed like weeks or something. Anyhow, they used to throw us around, ride us on their shoulders and all that stuff. With just a little kid. They were not much older. They were like early 20s or something like that. And so yeah, they actually lived with us for a while. My dad had seen them here in Nashville perform. George Hamilton IV had said, "John D, you need to go down and hear them at the Briar Patch," I think it was called, somewhere in the Lower Broad. Printer's Alley, and went and loved him, and so Dad started getting him on TV shows and stuff like that in town and all that stuff.
Sweet, simple beginnings.
Yeah, but nobody was really into the Allman Brothers. They just weren't ready for that. You know, I mean, come on.
Their area.
No, and it wasn't their town,
And
evidently.
they were paying their dues and cutting their teeth and getting it.
But Dad produced that first album. It was called The Almond Joys, and
cute.
they even have a song on there called Dear John.
Oh.
And they used a it was about a guy fooling around with somebody's wife, I believe, or something like. Anyhow, there was at the end of it, they brought out a pistol and it had a gunfire. And used it on the track, for sound effects.
Cool.
But anyhow, that did that, and he had them signed and everything, and they wanted they tried it for a couple of years or something, and nothing was really happening. So they came up to my dad and said, "Look, we want out. Is there any way you can get us out of all this?" And he turned the contract over and said, "I release you of everything."
Wow.
And I
Good
said,
dude.
you guys have
I'm sure.
a good career. And they went out to California and got with Hourglass, got with the rest of the folks and made the Allman Brothers Band, and then they just took off.
That's
so
awesome.
It was great. Yeah.
I bet growing up around, and seeing not only the creative side but the music biz side, like I bet that kind of taught you a lot early on. Just being able to see it firsthand.
How to
Of
navigate
course,
the
I'm sure when
industry.
you were 8, you didn't know what you were witnessing.
No,
it was just life to you. But
I didn't. We actually we were all of a sudden in the summer we were all of a sudden my mom decided to take all the kids and go to North Carolina and stay with my grandfolks for a few months, and that was because one night my dad came home late from a session, and the Allman Joys of the band was around the intercom system on the den of the house. And he walked in and said, "Hey guys, what y'all doing?" They shh, be quiet. We have this thing rigged. We're listening to one of the brothers up in a room, getting it on with lady friend. Yeah, and so this was that was part of the rock and roll thing that they were
some rock and roll shit.
Yes, and but I remember this thing that when she came down, of course she was a groupie. She had a shirt on that said, "I am the Almond's Joy," which I thought was kind of clever. And but anyhow, so the next day all of a sudden the kids went to North Carolina for the summer. So who knows what happened at that house after that. But those are kind of the fun stories, and it's rock and roll. It's the beginning of that rock and roll era and everything.
And it was a different time.
Did you ever hear of a player named Lenny Bro?
Absolutely.
So Lenny, of course, from Canada, great player that would come here to see Chet, but he stayed with us. He literally lived with us my whole childhood.
Yeah.
And my dad just was like, "Oh man, we're going to Chet's,"
Oh yeah,
Just
he's
great
fantastic.
players, but I'm just jonesing for hearing him play sing.
Yeah, I know.
This man, God,
Y'all are in
you'll
for a
see.
treat.
You're in for a big treat.
It's amazing. Chet had all these great guitar players from all over the world that would come in and want to be around him, and because Chet was, I'm sure he was known nationally, but internationally he was known probably a
Mr.
lot
Guitar.
bigger.
He
Yeah,
was the
he was like,
mentor.
yeah. So and, there was no lyrics in the song, so you didn't have to translate that. The music spoke universally, right? So
Music is a universal
yeah,
language.
so he was known
Definitely.
all over the world, and there's a funny thing, and I think it was in his book or something like that. But I believe they were on a cruise. My parents and Chet and his Leona, his wife, would go on these Caribbean cruises, and they were down there one time, and they were passing around a guitar one night. I believe how this went, and so said, "Well, this guy plays guitar," and handed it to Chet, and he played something and just blew everybody away. And somebody came up to him later and said, "You're pretty good, son, but you're no Chet Atkins." Yeah, because nobody knew who he was. Because
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
yeah.
He's like, well, actually.
And did
So-
you write your first song when you were 14, or did you write before that?
No, it was 14 or 15, I think. Yeah,
You wrote an instrumental?
yeah, wrote an instrumental, and
And
Chet,
Chet-
he cut it. Yeah,
That's awesome.
14 years
yeah.
old.
I sent it to Chet, and
I was about to say, talk about prodigy
well, I
talent.
don't know
Yep.
about that, but he liked it and invited me to play a little bit on it and stuff.
And you're going to hear.
I was like, my goodness, this is. I was just, I was like.
They
in
gave
the
you a good
days for years.
taste, huh?
Oh yeah, it was
Just a
wonderful.
little taste. Just a little
It was
taste.
Give you
wonderful.
just a little bit of motivation.
Oh my goodness, they had Lisa Silver, Johnny Gimble, and Paul Yandell, and Chet. It was a
Paul.
quartet called the Nashville String Company. No, the Atkins String Company, and it was "The Night Atlanta Burned" was the title cut of the album, and but it was wonderful, and it was done right here in this building.
Wow.
So that was a lot of fun listening to these players. It's just like, man, these guys are. I mean,
And
they're
of course,
just-
I know you probably fell asleep with that guitar in your arms many times too.
yeah, it was hypnotic. That's for
How
sure.
many hours a day would you have to practice to get that good at 14?
Oh,
To pull that off?
I don't know. I just kind of
You probably just enjoyed playing
just
and would
enjoyed
lose
some-
time
I
to
just-
it, huh?
I just did it until I got tired of it,
Yeah.
but I rarely got tired of it. So it was a lot, you know. I probably should have been out, you know, playing sports and stuff like that. But,
No, because now we get all of the beautiful sounds and songs.
Your fingers or your hands. We don't want any damage to
Okay,
the hands.
because he's not only a phenomenal musician, guitarist, multi-instrumentalist,
Songwriter,
producer. I was gonna note the songwriting. He has written. We actually co-wrote one, and y'all get to hear it soon enough. Called Crazy Love's Company. But you've written a lot as well, which your dad was a writer, and you said you started at 14 with instrumentals, but you're doing tons of
I was
songs now.
I was on the road for many years with different artists from Margot Smith to Frizzell and West, John Schneider, Crystal Gale, Lynn Anderson, just a bunch of, and then I would sub for different artists and stuff like that. So for a lot of years, and then I started doing some studio work, and then got back out on the road, and then started kind of producing and doing tracks, you know, multi-instrument tracks and everything, and just started, you know, got off the road and started doing that here and now, and you know, that's kind of, people can do that kind of.
Go ahead and drop some names.
Go ahead and do, well,
people you've written for and worked with.
Well, just like I said, Crystal Gale. We did. She and I wrote a song that she put out years ago that Art Bell, who did a late night talk show, he was late night talk show host for a radio show called Coast to Coast AM, and it came on. It was about 3 hours long or something every night, like at midnight. And we wrote a song called Midnight in the Desert, because he did it out in the desert outside in Pahrump, Nevada, in the middle of nowhere. We got invited over there to his place and saw he lived in a double wide mobile home in the middle of nothing, just dark at night, all the stars. And he would do that late night show, and they talk about ghosts and cattle mutilations and alien abductions and alien sex, everything. Where they just talked about all that stuff that was just like, you're going like, wow, what is this? And
is
it just
Tonopah,
they're shooting some
shooting
some crazy
it's
shit.
not far from Area 51. Exactly. Groom Lake and all that stuff. So
I'd love to go in there.
yeah, and so he was a big Crystal fan, so she and I got together and wrote him a song, and Crystal's husband as well, and we presented it to him one time. We were out there doing a gig in California, in Nevada, and he invited us out to Pahrump. We went out there, and he took us out to dinner and everything. But we got to see where a little room that he did it was the kid's bedroom of a double wide mobile home. That was his place where he did all his recording. So it was about the size of
this room,
about half the size of this room.
I have another question I want to ask you.
We only have a couple minutes, so let's get in the good ones.
Air Force One story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was out with Loretta Lynn and Crystal and their sister Peggy Sue. George Bush Sr. Loved these women singing and stuff, and so they asked me if I'd come out and play with them. So we did these little whistle stops all over the place, and after we were finished, we did that 2 or 3 tours kind of thing like that, and one time we were going to have to catch a commercial flight back to our place, and like we were doing a gig outside of Washington D.C., and we were in Chicago, and so he said, well, why don't you just fly with us? And so we got to fly on Air Force, and it was wonderful.
Someone something about a guitar? Is there something about teaching guitar on Air Force One?
Yes. I taught his grandson that came in to his stateroom, and I showed him some guitar, and he's a big political figure in Florida right now. Wow. I was Jeb Bush's son, I believe. Yeah. And so anyhow, so that was so much fun.
How old were you when you did that?
Oh, I was, I guess I was 30, maybe, so cool. Something like that.
I still have a couple questions, and they're important. So, your dad wrote Tobacco Road. Now, I grew up with Edgar Winter, so that was the first version that I heard. Mm-hmm. But we're going to be talking about your dad more later, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Edgar Winter. That was a killer version. It was one whole side of an album. That was back when the Allman Brothers actually kind of started that, I think.
Yeah.
The film, a lot of it, Fillmore East and stuff. Like one song would be 25 minutes. And my theory is that you do the drugs, listen to it, and by the time you get 10 minutes into it, they start kicking in. And then you're just like, whoa, man, Yeah. And then, so it takes you on this trip, So I think that was a big 60s, 70s kind of thing while they were so long, So, and Tobacco Road was one of those that was like that. It had several different parts that just kind of made up and did whatever, and it was wonderful.
I love songs written like that though, because like you said, it like takes you on a trip. It's an experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not just a song, right? It is. It's a sound adventure, So
exactly, it's almost like a little movie, audio movie.
Love it.
I've been actually putting together a little home studio and trying to get that together.
That's where we're recording.
Yeah,
my Honky Tonic album.
She's doing this whole project.
Honky Tonic.
Mike is co-producing and is the only other musician on all of the tracks. We're almost done, actually.
Well, absolutely.
So.
I'm the product of Honky Tonks.
There you go.
My grandfather founded Tootsie's. He was married to her. And so I'm a honky tonk girl. I'm a honky tonk girl.
That's good. I played the Grand Ole Opry for several years with different people out at Opryland. But the first time that I was able to do it at the Ryman, it was just it was just like incredible.
I'm so glad I've done it in both places. Yeah.
And so we did we did like 2 or 3 songs. Then we had like an hour or so off, and so we walked across the alley to Tootsie's, backdoor Tootsie's, and went in there and drank.
The green room.
Yeah, and drank beer in there, just like Redlands husband used to do and stuff in the movie and everything. So we wanted to do all that.
Was sketchy.
Oh yeah.
Went downtown.
No, not at all.
Awful. Bunch of peep shows and just.
Yes, yeah. How'd you know?
So, because
I know. I know.
I watched something with you and your dad where you were playing a medley of his songs, and then after it was all over, he was so proud of you. So proud of you. But he looked out at the camera and he was telling parents, support your kids in the arts and don't tell them go get a real job. Support them, their creativity. And is that something you've tried to carry on?
Oh yeah, I mean, I could. There was no way I could do anything else. I've never had another job. I was a paper boy when I was, 15 years old or 14, maybe younger than that. And then it was music after all that. So yeah, I'd really be up shit's creek if I tried to.
In your bones. If it's in your bones, if it's in your soul, if it's in your blood, you can't get away from it. This is the only thing you can see yourself doing. Yeah.
But the business helps a lot too, because it's just not music. You got production, you got this and that and all that stuff, and then some business and stuff like that.
That actually helps you support your music habit.
So nowadays we all have to do that kind of stuff to make a living.
But don't tell your kids, oh, you need to get a real job.
No,
trust me.
Help cultivate their creativity. If they have that penchant for it, help nurture it, because then you get amazing talent in the world, like Mike.
If you squelch it, it's going to hurt them in the long run.
And, I think it's time that they finally get to hear him play some. We've been talking about Chet and all of the, just how much he impacted the music industry, guitar pickers, working with your dad impacted you.
Why don't we go into his old office?
Yes.
The magic room?
Yeah. And
let us go.
And let's do it.
Stay tuned for part 2 with some live music with our special guest.